Hey Thrivers, welcome back for the fourth and final session on these financial building blocks. Now, today we're going to talk about a pretty big topic, retirement. Am I going to be able to do it one day, right? So the answer first and foremost is yes. If it's important enough to you, you will do the things it takes to retire comfortably and live the life that you want to live in retirement. But here's what I want you to do first. I want you to define retirement. What does it mean to you? Retirement can look so different for so many different people. You may love what you do so much that if your body allows, you may say, I want to do this until the day I die. Retirement could look like, hey, I'm just going to try and make as much money as I can in this industry for the next 5-10 years, then I'm out. I want to go do something else. So you have to define what retirement looks like for you. Andy Stanley has a quote that I absolutely love. Everyone gets somewhere in life. A few people get there on purpose. The ones that get there on purpose have vision. So the question is, what is your vision for your future? What is your vision for retirement? That can be a big, lofty, sometimes difficult question to think about, but I want to help you break it down. So a couple of questions for you. The first one's going to kind of sound maybe a little bit weird, but what age are you going to die? You're like, whoa, this turned fast, Mikey. But really the thought is to get you way out in the future. When I was first asked that question, the number was almost 90 years old, like 87, 88 years old. The follow-up question is really where the profound nature of what's important to me started to reveal itself. In terms of relationships, career and purpose, personal finances, physical well-being, health, my emotional and spiritual well-being, what do I want to be true in each one of those areas for me to be able to say with confidence at 88, 89 years old, I ran my race well. I lived a life, I've lived a legacy that I'm proud of. I'm leaving something great for the next generation. Having that type of clarity of vision of what you want life to look like, the type of impact that you want to have, not only helps you know what you're shooting for, but it also creates a really powerful why that helps with the consistency and the stick-to-itness, right? When the instant gratification version of you doesn't feel like it. I am guilty. Not every day do I wake up and think, yes, I'm going to put this much back for retirement and I'm going to invest this way in my friendships and I'm human. I forget to do those things. I get distracted. But by having a really strong vision and a why for my future, it helps me stick to the plans that I'm putting in place so that I can do things like retire when I want to and how I want to. Now, here's the key thing to note as it pertains to retirement. There is a pivotal habit that you must create in order to retire well, regardless of what you think retirement's going to look like for you. And it's saving. That may sound like an oversimplification, but if you don't create the habit of saving, right, creating the excess that we spoke about last time in managing our cash flow, if there is no excess and we're not being diligent and intentional with where we're putting that money, it's going to be really tough to retire. You may have parents, grandparents, maybe even generations before that worked for companies for 30, 40 years and they offered retirement benefits and they're getting a really good social security income and all these other means to help them through retirement. Well, the landscape looks a little bit different for us now, okay? Some statistics to think about, and I believe it's on your handout too, but the average savings rate in the 1970s was about 12 to 13% of gross income. Meaning if you made, let's call it $100,000, on average, an American household was putting back $12,000 to $13,000 a year. Now, towards the end of the 70s, the popularity of credit cards started to increase, and we all know the temptation that they can bring. Fast forward to today, the average savings rate is down below 2%, and credit card debt is at an all-time high. I believe since COVID, credit card usage has increased by over a third. Right? So what does that mean? More temptation, more opportunities for instant gratification, and we're saving less than ever before. Now, to compound that, over about the same time period, companies went from offering pensions at about a 70-75% clip to now less than 10% of companies actually have any type of pension. Mikey, what's a pension? It's money that the company is putting back on my behalf that I don't have to save, and it's going to guarantee a payout for me in retirement. It's really the same way as Social Security works, right? There is money being put back over the course of my working years, and I get to draw from that in retirement. Now, depending on how you're compensated, you may not be paying in over the years, and so that may impact the amount that you draw out. But the other thing to consider is when Social Security first got its start, the ratio of how many people were paying in to how many people were receiving Social Security was way larger than it is today. Those statistics were actually 159 to 1 to now closer to 3 to 1. That's a big discrepancy. So again, the landscape looks different. If it's gonna be, it's up to me and it's up to you. We have to develop this habit of saving because in general, no one else is doing it for us. There's not a lot of retirement benefits offered, particularly for people in this field. And Social Security, who knows what it's going to look like by the time we retire based on whatever age you're at right now. So, how do we develop this habit of saving? I have found through personal experience and through working with a ton of clients, only when we do it on the front end and we essentially trick ourselves into doing it, do we actually get it done with any type of consistency. So that could look like a lot of different forms. It could look like having a portion of our paycheck go directly to another account. It could look like all of our money getting deposited into a savings or an operational account first and then paying ourselves an amount to really live off of and run our business out of into a different account. But ultimately creating that separation of where my dollars are going and automating that process is what's going to be the game changer. Think about it if you were to do it otherwise, which is actually the way the majority of the country does it. Money comes in, typically into my checking account, right? Maybe a business checking account. Now, really, a checking account should be synonymous with a spending account because that's what we do out of it, right? There's that gravitational pull on money. We swipe, swipe, swipe. It's so easy. And what ends up happening is we have to make a conscious decision at the bottom of that pile to try to move money over here into savings. Now, I make this action because, as you've probably felt, that's literally an uphill battle, right? We're spending subconsciously and attempting to save consciously. By automating where savings is going and just giving yourself a little less to look at in that spending account, you have created a subconscious or an unconscious saving method, and now you just have to consciously think about how much money's left over to spend. It is truly tricking yourself into wealth creation and creating the ability to retire one day. So we got to figure out, where are we at right now? How much am I currently saving, if anything? And what is my method for doing that? And you may wonder, Mikey, what is a good amount to save? Well, within my practice, what I typically tell clients is anywhere that you can start is a win. If it's 5%, if it's 10%, if it's a set dollar amount, just start to build that habit. But for the long term, we would classify world-class saving as someone that's able to save and invest 15 to 20% of their gross income. Now, that's not just an arbitrary statistic. What we found is if you save and invest that amount over the course of your career, and you get even a conservative rate of return and growth on that money throughout your career, that at a typical retirement age, you now actually don't have to see a drop-off in the quality of your lifestyle when you retire. And that's what we want, right? We don't want to get to retirement and all of a sudden have to be worried about how much we're spending on groceries and lowering the quality of lifestyle, being able to travel less. Ultimately, retirement is about you creating the freedom to really invest outside of your career in all the other things that you want to experience before the day we leave this earth. One of the ways we can help ourselves do that is develop this habit of saving and doing it at a 15 to 20% clip. Now, there's so many directions to go after that, right? Retirement is about tax diversification. It's about asset diversification. It's about liquidity diversification. And you might just be like, Mikey's speaking a foreign language right now. We can dive a little bit more into that in the Q&A. But with all of those moving parts, the core foundation of it all is your ability to save consistently. It doesn't matter about tax diversification or asset diversification if there's no money going into those accounts. And if there's no money to plan on being tax strategic about. So I implore you, do an inventory, and I keep coming back to this idea every session, but I want you to leave with something practical to take a look at in your financial economy. How much am I saving right now? Am I able to be consistent? And if I'm not, that's okay. Let's take the step of maybe doing $50 a week, a couple $100 a month, automated into a savings account, so at the very least we can build an emergency fund. And that is something we want to keep out of sight, out of mind. Once you've completed that item, then maybe we move to a couple months worth of business expenses or a couple months worth of mortgage or rent payments, whatever that looks like for you. For me, I also have to throw daycare in the mix, right? So once we have started to hit these thresholds and we move beyond those immediate needs, those oh no, oh crap monies, right? Then we can start looking at longer term investing and building for our future that will ultimately help us retire. So I hate to have made it sound like an oversimplification, because while it's simple, it is definitely not easy, especially with all the things pulling for your attention in this day and age. But if you can build that foundational habit of saving, consistently tricking yourself into doing it, and keeping those monies out of sight, out of mind, you'll be well on your way to moving towards that vision that you have for long term and ultimately the way you live in retirement.